Good morning. Hey y'all, this is Stacy. We are loving my veteran, and this is walking in my shoes. I told my mom I'd start telling what day it is. So it's Tuesday because all of our days are kind of blurring together here. Um, Today we're going to talk about why our veterans distance themselves. Before we do that, let's just kind of recap where we are. If you did not get the newsletter, please sign up on the website. Newsletter went out yesterday. There is a thing about how we deal with them during the holidays, what we can do to make our holiday experience better. Good morning, Roxana. So that's on there as well. If you have not gotten the newsletter, please sign up on the website. Um, we were blessed yesterday. I ended up doing, I think, 5 Zoom one-on-ones yesterday. So it was a lot of fun and got to meet people, and that was just amazing. So I was super excited about that. You'll see some other stuff that came out in the newsletter. Y'all, please don't forget about adopting a veteran from a nursing home. Send them cards and all for the holidays. It would be amazing because we don't want them to be by themselves, and with the country, except for Georgia, pretty much closing down. Again, don't want to forget our veterans that are in the nursing home. So please find a veteran and get them adopted, because that would just be a great thing. Let's see. Thursday night we do our Let's Talk, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Pop on. We have such a good time. It is a very learning experience because we bring the veterans on too, so we kind of get both perspectives. I think that's important when we learn to walk in their shoes. What else? Oh, and next Thursday, the 10th, make sure you get your stuff together for gingerbread houses, because it's 7 during Let's Talk. We're going to make gingerbread houses and with our little kids and have a good time. So please do that. All right. So today we're going to talk about, why our veterans distance themselves. And I think before we even get into that, we need to kind of talk about the PTSD cycle itself. I think there's some misconceptions out there about what PTSD is and how it actually works in the combat veteran. So it is important that we understand that there are PTSD episodes, and that's usually caused by a trigger. And that is when things can be kind of going along, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, and we're into this explosion type state, or they become, angry, enraged, those kind of things. So that is like a PTSD episode. When you have PTSD, you go through this, and it is always playing in the back of your mind. This, and I like to use the word video, kind of just always plays in the back of your mind, and they suppress it. So while they're suppressing it, it is still an ongoing thing. So you can't sit here and say, well, my veteran has PTSD today. Good morning, Natalie. You can't say my veteran has PTSD today. Your veteran has PTSD all the time. Whether or not they're in an episode is different, but they have PTSD all the time. So it's just, some things are a constant, and some things are created by a trigger. So that's really important that we understand that, because so often we hear, well, they can control it, they can shut it off, they can do this, they can do that. No, you can't. It is a physical change to the brain. So understand that going with this. But today we're really going to talk about why they distance themselves. I think we hear so much about our veteran is disengaged. Our veteran distances himself. I can't get him to have a conversation. So I'm not talking about physically pushing you away like I'm leaving or whatever. I'm talking about the emotional distancing of themselves. I know that a lot of times, like with Carl and I in the mornings, we'll have a good morning, and something will come up, or he'll see something on a Facebook feed, or there's just a lot going on that he has to process. And he's like, I just have to process this. And when he does that, he's not very engaged in a conversation. So they distance themselves that way. I know that a lot of us talk about that they play video games and they just don't interact. That is again that distancing themselves that we see. It's not an explosive episode. It is just we can't get them to engage in what we're doing. And I think that becomes a big issue for us. We like that engagement. We need that engagement. So when you understand the why they distance themselves, then we can start addressing how to get them to re-engage. So part of the reason why they distance themselves is one, self-preservation. Remember, our veterans already have a low self-esteem, most of them. And that's going to sound strange because they also portray, almost all of them portray this sense of arrogance. It is, everything is your fault. They do everything right. So it becomes this egotistical arrogance type thing. But again, that's part of their coping mechanism because they don't see things quite the way we do. So when they distance themselves, they're kind of just wanting some space. They need space to process what's going on in their head. Well, when they do it often enough, it becomes a habit for them. So when they're not engaged with us, and it happens, they're not engaged, it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit and a routine. Veterans with PTSD are very routine driven. Veterans, again, with PTSD are very routine driven. I can tell you how many cups of coffee Carl's going to drink on most days. I can tell you almost everything that's going to happen in order in a day for us because they are very routine driven. So when things mess up their routine, they again become more distant. When there's a lot of crap that comes in that they have to think about, they become very distant because they're processing it. For us, we process it very quickly. We move on. We have to do what we have to do. Their brain doesn't work that way. Remember, we talked way earlier, weeks and weeks ago, about how their brain works. It's always in that hypervigilant flight or fight mode. And so for them, they have to have time to absorb it and process it out. So that is why a lot of times they distance themselves. The other thing is that, and this is a big deal, they know what's going on. They may not know when they have that rage moment or when they're in a PTSD episode, but they know what's going on. And so again, they feel like, well, if I'm engaged or I'm part of this, that I may not be able to, I may hurt their feelings, I may say something out of line, I may do something that I don't need to do. And so it's kind of like a protection for us as well. So just think about that when you understand the disengagement. Now, how do you get them to re-engage? Re-engaging that's what's going to create a relationship. We're all here because we want a relationship with our veteran. It is critical that we have that relationship. And you just have to understand that we have to get them to re-engage in a positive manner where they're going to become part of our life and a functioning part of our life. You can't have these preconceived ideas about what your veteran can and cannot do. Every veteran is different. Everybody with PTSD is different. Every one of us are different. I think Mike's going to say something else. I got to scroll down to see it. Yay. Yeah. Go shopping, baby, and watch this when you get back. Enjoy. So they all do this so differently, and we do it all differently. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you. You know me. So we are all doing this differently. So how do we re-engage them? Re-engaging them is very important for them to be part of our life. And so we're working on communication skills. What works with your veteran? Remember, I've always said don't overwhelm them. Don't give them this massive list because they can't deal with it. It just doesn't work that way. And I'll give you an example. Um, Carl and I knew that we had to go yesterday and get some stuff, and um, we had to wait for the money to get the bank and all that kind of good stuff like we always do. And so he was just kind of laying down getting his head together, and I was working. And about 5 o'clock I noticed he was up, and I said, hey, we need to run and get some stuff, because we had talked about going to get a new Christmas tree and a bunch of stuff. And he's like, okay. Well, I'm thinking now, when I approach you and say, hey, we need to go do something, I'm thinking, okay, well, that means we need to go now. And what does he do? He goes and lays back down, puts the cover over his head, and I'm like, what the hell? You're not even engaging with me. And so as we get up, and he kind of realizes I'm not happy, and we're on our way to the store, to the Hobby Lobby, to get the Christmas stuff that we want, because I have found that with Christmas with us, we need to do traditions and stuff that are kind of ours, and things that he can relate to and do, that I can relate to and do, and that makes us happy together. So it's a little slower than what I like to do, but I want him engaged this time. So we made a list of stuff we needed. We had talked about decorations for the past week or so, what we wanted, what we were going to do. So when we get to the Hobby Lobby, things are so different. Unlike where he normally is like super vigilant, freaking out, it wasn't like that. He was so engaged in getting the right tree, and he, of course, his answer always is, does it make you happy? Well, of course it makes me happy, so let's just get this one. We did that. He actually made a comment and put his input into what decorations he liked. And I was like, whoa, score for me. He picked up a wreath for the door. It was great. Of course, he picks out the most expensive wreath in the Hobby Lobby, but whatever. But we engaged. And so when we got home last night, I'm like fluffing the tree, and people talk about that thing, and I'm doing the little tree thing, and he's active in it, and he's moving the decorations and all around. And so I talked to him about today, and I said, all right, so, I've got to work this morning, and we've got stuff that has to get done, and we've got meetings and all this morning. So when I'm done, I'll decorate the tree. And then all of a sudden I looked at him and I said, unless you want to help me. And he said, how about we do that this evening? So we engaged by giving him that option, and that's re-engaging, and that is so important. Now again, do I expect him to do it all the way till it's done? Nope. But I will take 5 minutes of engagement. And that is so important, because now he has all day to process the fact that this afternoon, this evening, we're going to decorate the tree. And that, I think, is key. You have to give them, you can't go in and say, and it was so obvious last night, that I couldn't go in at 5 o'clock and say, hey, we need to run to the store right now, because he didn't engage that way. It shut him down. But when we had been talking about for a week what we wanted, and when we finally got going to what we were doing, he was a very active participant. So we have to be able to do that, to stop that distance that we have. That distance that we get, that kind of, and his word is a wedge. And that wedge comes from lack of good communication. We don't always communicate well. When I'm talking to a friend of mine, whatever, we can kind of read each other, and when I say something abstract, they kind of know what I'm talking about. You have to be very clear in your communication. And I have found that some of our biggest arguments and disagreements are because I'm not clear in what I'm asking. when I said, hey, you want to go to the store? We need to go. He was like, yeah, I'll go. Well, I'm thinking right now because that's what I'm thinking. He's thinking go to the store, not right now. When it would have been had I come in and said, hey, hon, look, it's like 5. Can we go ahead and get ready and go to the store now? It would have been a totally different mindset, and that distance wouldn't have been between us. So communication is key. And I know that the Carl's wife behind me kind of just laughing and snickering because I learn way more from him than he learns from me, hands down. And so he has been very helpful in getting me to understand that communication is key and being very clear and concise. So, we have this distance between us. We're sitting at opposite ends of the couch or opposite ends of the house, and you feel like this wall's been built between you. This wall has to be torn down, probably by us. Remember, and I know y'all get tired of hearing me say, why should we be the ones to do it? Why are we going to be the ones who make the first change? Do you like the wall? Do you like the distance? Do you like the disengagement? If you can say no to all those things, and we know that they are creatures of habit, they're not going to change without a stimulus there, because for every action, there's a reaction. So how do we get that to happen? We make that first change. Is it going to happen day one, out the gate, overnight, that everything is going to get better? No. For us, this has been an ongoing process for 6 or 7 months that we've worked through, that we talk. And instead of blowing up yesterday, which was a huge thing for us, was there some little snapping to each other? Yeah, but we didn't blow up. And so he said to me, this is how I feel. You were not clear. I'm like, well, what do you mean I wasn't clear? I said, we need to go to the store. He said, but you didn't tell me when. And I'm thinking, okay. So as we're riding, he tells me more of the story. And the more of the story is, remember, when they were in combat, they got objectives. And they may have been briefed on this objective the day before they were going to go. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to do this at 1,400 hours. So they knew what they had to do and when it had to be done. Same thing when we want little things done around the house. I'm so sick of the fact you don't help me around the house. Okay, that's a very vague thing. For me, I get it. I'm like, okay, you want help around the house? Look, I see the floors need to be mopped, or I see the house needs to be dusted, or I see we need to run the vacuum, or we need to make the bed, or whatever it is. And I'm like, cool, I'll just go help around the house. For them, it's very clear and very precise. And start with the small stuff. Like for me, not making a bed drives me nuts. It's just a me thing. It isn't an everybody thing. So if we get up at the same time, I'm like, hey, babe, will you help me make the bed real quick? Every single time he says yes, and every single time there's no attitude. So that disengaging is gone, and that distance is gone. We have a thing about the dishes. I wash them, he puts them up. Simple. I wash them, he puts them up. Now, does he always put them up when I want them to? No. So that created a lot of friction in the beginning, because he was like, I told you I put them away. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just standing here and I was going to wash these few up and I need a room in the dish drainer. Right? Well, he's like, I told you I'd do it. Okay, and he said, why don't you just come to me and say, hey, babe, I'm going to go ahead and wash up these dishes. Do you want me to put these away, or are you going to handle it? And by giving him that choice, he doesn't feel like he's not doing his job, and we're clear on what we're giving them. So part of the reason they disengage and part of the reason for the distance is because we're not giving clear objectives. We're not giving them clear objectives. And again, it's in the way that our brains work. And that is not a PTSD moment. That is the PTSD period. The other thing that we do for us that has really worked, because let's be real, what I do here evolves and it changes daily. Like when I said, hey, if y'all need some one-on-one time, let me know. I ended up doing 5 of them yesterday. Well, initially I had one call scheduled at 7 o'clock. So what I do is I have a dry erase board, not a huge one, but I put it up next to my desk, and so I write things on it. So like when the new ones come in, a new Zoom comes in the middle of the day, a new objective that I have to accomplish comes in for work in the middle of the day, I write it on that board. Well, what that does is sometimes I get busy and I forget to tell him, hey, this is going on, that's going on. Well, in the morning, he always asks, what are you doing today? What do we have to do today? And so when I give him that list and then I've added something to it, it creates an issue with distance and engagement. Well, you didn't tell me. Remember, veterans with PTSD, have a big issue in trust and communication. So if I don't tell him, he gets uptight. If I don't tell him, it's not that he thinks I'm keeping something from him. It's because he wants to be, when they say, well, you didn't tell me, it's not because they're one being nosy and overly protective and overly this. One, they are protective. So if you're going out of town, if you're going into town and you go to 3 places and you didn't tell him the 3rd place, or you deviate from where you're going, it does cause a problem because they're always thinking about safety and security. But the other part is we don't give them clear objectives. So when we don't share all of our objectives, it creates an issue. Like there's days that I'll get up and I'll say, he's like, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to clean the house today. So it used to irritate the snot out of me that he'd sit on the couch and watch me clean the house. Well, if I said I'm going to clean the house, I'm going to clean the house. And now it's like, what are you going to do today? Well, I need to sweep and mop and clean the bathroom. So now I get engagement from him. I want that. But God forbid if I decide to dust in the middle of it, he's like, I didn't think you were going to do that today. And that creates a friction problem. So it helps get rid of that distancing and that disengagement when you're very clear in how you communicate. Same thing with dinner. You know, we talk about dinner early on. What are we going to eat tonight? If we deviate from that without a good conversation, it gets him in a mindset, and not because he's just that way, because again, they stay in that mission mode. So when we deviate from that mission, when we deviate from that plan, we're not being clear and concise, and it creates disengagement and creates a distance. Again, I'll go back to yesterday. We had planned earlier. Carla made amazing sauce the day before. Gravy, whatever we want to call it. I'm a Southern person. Everything to me that is red with stuff that goes over pasta is called spaghetti sauce. Heaven forbid I tell the Italian peoples that it's spaghetti sauce, because spaghetti is a type of noodle, not all noodles. Just in case you're interested, I learned that. So we were going to make leftover lasagna. I was like, cool, I'll use the sauce, I'll make lasagna. Great. Well, we got to town. It got later and later, and I just looked at him and I said, hun, I know we were really planning on lasagna, but I'm really kind of tired. Can we do something different? And he was like, sure, what do you want? I said, I don't know, what would you like? And that created this distance. And I was like, he's looking at me, and I'm like, babe, what do you want? And he's, what do you want? I said, let's see if they have a rotisserie chicken. And he's like, that sounds wonderful. Took 2 seconds. He went and found the chicken, brought it back. It was good. We were fine. But that not having that objective, that not having that yes or no, even when we go back to looking at Christmas stuff, the way we want to decorate the house, instead of going, hey babe, what do you want? And it'd be so vague. I looked at pictures of stuff I liked and I said, honey, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And it was very clear. So when we're not clear, we create that disengagement. We create that distance because they don't want to do it wrong. They have an objective that they've learned and been trained on. And when we don't communicate clearly, it creates disengagement and distance. Because when you disengage for too long, you now create distance. And if you want that back, you have to ask for it. When you're sitting on the couch at night or you're doing whatever, instead of saying and getting emotional, and we all have them, and women are so different than men. And so, we've had a bad day and we're emotional and our hormones are playing a part and we want to start to cry and we want them to put their arms around us and they don't, right? I mean, they don't. One, in their job, they didn't learn empathy. They didn't learn compassion. Because what are you going to do? You're going to go in, you're going to shoot the enemy, and you're going to sit over there and you're going to feel for them and you're going to feel bad for them, and then somebody's going to shoot you too. So they had to learn to shut that off. So instead of me just saying, I'm having, yeah, and he's like, no, I now look at him and I say, hey, I've had a really bad day. Can you just wrap your arms around me for a minute? Guess what happens every single time? Every single time. I've had a bad day. Can you wrap your arms around me? Or will you wrap your arms around me? Will you hold me? Every single time I ask, I get. Because it's direct communication. You want the distance to go away. You need that to go away. You need the disengagement to go away. You have to be clear in what you're asking for. Again, not overwhelm them. When you ask them for 90 things, guess what's going to happen? By the time you get to number 2, they have shut off and nothing you say is going to work. Nothing. So always, whatever you can schedule ahead of time, schedule. I always remind Carl in the morning, hey babe, don't forget that on Friday we're going to do this. And don't forget that on Saturday we have this. Right? So I'm reminding, we're kind of talking. So he gets that in his head as we're going through. And then, of course, I write things down. So we're all looking at it because I forget everything too. And now this communication is very clear. And so the more we communicate, the more that distance goes away. The more we communicate clearly, the more the disengagement goes away. Now, I'm telling you, it was not an overnight process. So please hear what I'm saying. It is not an overnight process. If you think that trying these things that we're talking about are going to be a quick fix, they're not. And you are going to take 5,000 steps back at times. There are times that we are just rocking along and things are great, and all of a sudden I feel like somebody's pushed me over the cliff and I'm free falling back to the bottom where I got to climb my way back out of. And you do. You do. That happens. You're gonna have to climb your way back out sometimes. That all happens. So let's wrap this up real quick. We're going to talk about communication. Remember, early on we've talked about communication being key. You want the distancing to go away. Be specific in what you want. You want the distancing to go away. Be specific in what you want. I have some paperwork that we need to fill out today. And I said to him, hey babe, we got to get this filled out. And he's like, okay. And that was the end of it. And I went back and I said, honey, I need this done before I run uptown later today. Can we do this after my live? Guess what he said? Absolutely. So where I would have gotten pissed because I said, hey, can we do this today? And it didn't get done, and it got pushed to the side for the other things that took over. And y'all know what I'm talking about. For a lot of the guys, it's video games or TV, because it creates that numbingness and that distancing, of their brain. If I would have just said, hey, we need to do this sometime today, guess what was going to happen? We weren't going to get it done. But when I put a time frame on it, hey, can we do this after I get done with? All of a sudden it was yes, and we're engaged. And that's the key to disengagement with a veteran, and the distancing. They cannot read our minds. They do not read our minds. So you have to be clear. You have to be concise. If a situation's come up and they need to talk to their therapist or their doctor or whatever, don't just say to them, hey, you need to call your doctor, or you need to call your therapist, or you need to call whatever. You're not giving them anything, but you need to. When you go in and say, hey, this is still going on, and we're having a problem with your medicine that needs to be adjusted, or we got to get a refill, or whatever the answer is, will you please call your doctor this morning and ask for the refill? What did you do? You made it clear, you made it concise, and you gave them very clear direction. And now you're going to find that will make life better. Communication is it. It will close the gap, and they distance themselves because they don't want to do what's wrong. Most of the time, the truth be told, they don't want these explosions, but they don't know how to control them. So we can't fix them. Baby, we can chat whenever your little heart desires, as long as I have a thing at 10, Natalie. So with my bestest friends from high school, and I promise them. And I have a 2:30. So you tell me when. I know we're going to do a 3 o'clock today. So if you need me before then, just message me in a minute. So that's the key. Clear, concise communication. It is a big deal. It will help you more than you can begin to imagine, and it will take time. They've distanced themselves. They don't want to be a failure. They've distanced themselves. They don't want to hurt you. They've distanced themselves because... No, it doesn't come through as demanding or needy, Sharon. It comes in as clear and concise. You want them... I'm not telling you to give them a laundry list of 5,000 things to do, but things that they need to do, their responsibility. Things you want them to do with you as part of a family. Be very clear and very concise, because they're mission driven. They didn't tell them when they went in theater or in country, they didn't tell them, okay, y'all, we need to get rid of the enemy and they're sitting over here. Okay, or we have a threat and it's over here. They told them what the threat was, exactly where it was, and exactly what time they were going to neutralize it. So their brains are wired to think that way. Now, I'm not saying get demanding and ugly and say, you will do this at 10 o'clock. But if you talk about things that need to be done and then are concise and clear in, honey, we really need to call your doctor today. Can you do that this morning? Or, babe, it's cold here. And for South Georgia, I'm telling you, 45 degrees is cold. Right? So I'll be freezing. And 3 weeks ago, I said, honey, will you call the guy and get some firewood? All right. Well, a week goes by. We don't have any firewood. Honey, will you call the guy and get some firewood? We don't have any firewood. I'm thinking, oh, great. So finally I looked at him and I said, babe, it's going to be cold next week, and I'm going to freeze, and we really need this firewood. Do you think you can call the firewood guy today? He did, and it was delivered. So you're not being needy or demanding, you're saying, I need you to do this by. And what you're getting out of it is an action. And there's some days that you just say, hey, can you do this? And it's like, no, I don't feel like that. Sharon, message me, and absolutely, yes, we can set up a time to talk. All right, y'all. I am going to pop off of here. It has been amazing. You know, I adore you people. You're the best, and you help me more than you will ever know by our conversations. Um, like I said, I'm so excited. I'm 54, so that tells you how long I've been friends with these people. There are 5 of us getting together that have been friends since we were in middle school, and we're all over the country, and we're going to Zoom, and I'm so excited because I miss my friends. I'm going to do that at 10. But yes, message me, Sharon, and I will set you up something. Natalie, same thing. Don't forget, at 3 o'clock today, I might be on the road doing it. We'll do the Zoom. I'll put that out as well, so we can kind of do our spousal Zoom thing, and we'll do that today at 3. If you want to be in a big discussion, if you need one-on-ones, we can do that too. Alrighty, y'all. This is Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. I love y'all, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.